The man in the torn coat was worth billions, but no one in that diner knew. Not when the sirens wailed outside, not when the eviction papers hit the counter, and especially not the waitress he was about to betray. It was barely 6 a.m., and the diner smelled like burnt toast and half-clean grease traps. Outside, the streetlights still flickered, unsure whether to surrender to the morning. Inside, the booths were mostly empty, except for one. Ava Sanders wiped her hands on her apron and approached him like she always did. Same table, same seat, same black coffee. He never looked up. She paused, waiting for even a glance. None came. "Morning," she said, voice soft but steady. "Coffee's hot. Real hot. Could wake the dead today." She managed to smile, even though he never smiled back. He gave a small nod, barely that, and stared out the window like he was waiting for something to never arrive. Ava placed the mug in front of him, her fingers brushing the ceramic just a second longer than needed. She wasn't sure why. Maybe she was trying to feel seen through someone who clearly didn't want to be noticed either. He was always in layers, even in July. Jacket a size too big, shoes clean but old. His beard had gone from weekend rough to long-term hiding. But the strange thing wasn't how he looked. It was how he carried silence like armor. Most customers bark orders, scroll their phones, complain about the toast. But he just sat, listening, watching, thinking. And Ava, well, she noticed people. Always had. Too much sometimes. "Need anything else?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "No." The voice was low, tired, and oddly polite. Then a beat of silence. "Thanks." Ava blinked. That was new. She walked away slowly, pretending to fix the sugar jar just so she could glance back. His eyes weren't on the window this time. They were on her, but not in that way. More like he was trying to figure her out. Like she was the mystery. She turned quickly and focused on wiping the counter, suddenly self-conscious. Why did her stomach do that flip? It was just a look. A tired man, a lonely booth, and a coffee he hadn't touched yet. Across the diner, old Marvin coughed his usual cough and raised his empty plate. "Hey, sweetheart, don't forget the check. I got a hot date with a nap," he teased. Ava chuckled, grateful for the break in tension. "Coming right up, Casanova." But as she moved through the quiet clatter of early morning life, her eyes kept drifting back to that one booth. That man. She didn't know his name, didn't know his story, but something about him felt heavy, like a storm that hadn't started yet. And somewhere deep down, Ava felt it. This man was going to change everything. She just didn't know if it'd be for better or for worse. By Thursday, Ava had learned exactly 3 things about the man in booth 5. He came in just after dawn. He always ordered black coffee, no cream, no sugar. He never stayed longer than 30 minutes. And every day it was the same. He'd sit quietly, pull out a tattered leather notebook, scribble something for a few minutes, then stare out the window like the world outside wasn't quite real. Most people passed him by. He didn't talk to anyone, didn't smile, didn't flinch when a tray dropped or when the TV blared the morning news. But Ava noticed what others didn't. The way his jaw clenched when headlines flashed about the stock market crashing. The faint tremble in his fingers when he gripped his pen. The look of someone trying hard not to fall apart. Still, she didn't pry. Ava knew what silence could mean. She wore her own kind every day like a second skin. Back in the kitchen, Rick, the cook, shouted over the sizzle of eggs. "Your mystery man's back," he said with a smirk, peeking out the pass-through window. He ever gonna order real food? Maybe a pancake won't kill him. Ava shrugged. He tips well. Doesn't complain. Could be worse. Rick raised a greasy eyebrow. Could also be married, broke, or wanted in 3 states. She smiled faintly but didn't answer. She didn't want to guess. She liked the not knowing. At least with mystery, anything was possible. Later that afternoon, after the lunch crowd thinned and the booths were wiped down, Ava sat near the front window sketching on a napkin. Just lines, nothing serious. Her hands moved like they remembered something her heart forgot. Art used to be her escape. Before things fell apart. Before the gallery opening that never happened. Before the phone call that shattered her world. She crumpled the napkin and shoved it in her apron. No one needed to see that, especially not him. Just then, the bell above the door jingled. She looked up. He was back. 2 visits in one day. Now that was new. She walked over, unsure what to expect. "Forgot something?" she asked gently. He looked up at her, eyes dark but softer than before. "No, I just needed a place to think." She nodded slowly, folding her arms. "You picked the right place. We've got coffee, quiet, and the occasional screaming toddler." That earned the faintest curve of his lips. Not quite a smile, but close enough to count. "What's your name?" she asked, more curious than bold. He hesitated, long enough to feel strange. Then James. Just that. No last name, no small talk, just James. "Well, James," she said, pouring him another cup, the 3rd refills on the house. "But only if you promise not to sue me for terrible jokes." This time he smiled, really smiled, and it changed everything. Not just his face, but the way she felt in that moment. Like maybe she wasn't invisible either. In the booth beside him, a newspaper rustled. And there, in small print near the bottom corner of the business page, Halden Corp faces legal turmoil as founder remains in hiding. But neither Ava nor James noticed. Not yet. By the following week, the news hit like a slap across the face. Ava came into the diner early, as usual, only to find her manager, Lyle, pacing near the cash register with a wrinkled letter in one hand and a half-drunk cup of coffee in the other. His usual calm was gone. "They sold the lot," he said, handing Ava the paper without looking her in the eye. "Developers. Some holding company. We've got 3 months." She stared at the letter. Cold words. Deadlines. A stamped signature with no name. "They can't do this," she said quietly. This place is everything to people around here." Lyle sighed, shoulders slumping. "Not anymore. Not to the ones who matter." The day dragged. People still came in. Teachers, retirees, the same 3 guys from the garage. But it all felt thinner somehow. Even Marvin didn't flirt with his usual old man charm. By 10 a.m., James walked in. He sat in his usual booth, ordered nothing, and looked around like something in the air had changed. Ava brought him coffee anyway. No words, just steam between them. He noticed her hands were shaking. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She gave a short laugh. "Define okay." Then she surprised herself. She sat down, right there across from him. "I know I'm just a waitress, and this is just a diner." But she gestured around them. "This place has been here since I was 6. My mom used to bring me here for pancakes when we couldn't afford rent. It's not just a job. It's roots. And now it's being sold off like scrap." James didn't move, didn't blink, but something flickered behind his eyes. "Who's buying it?" he asked too casually. Ava shrugged. "Some shell company. Halden Group or something. Just another faceless giant." He froze. "Halden?" She nodded, bitter. "Figures, right? One of those bloodless billionaire things. They buy gut and flip. Never even step foot in the places they ruin." He looked down at his notebook, silent. Ava stood up. "Sorry, I shouldn't dump that on you." "No," he said, stopping her gently. "You're right." She blinked. "About what?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. Instead, he slid his notebook toward her. A napkin was tucked inside. Scribbled on it, "File for landmark review. If granted, demolition pauses immediately. Look into Local Ordinance 12.4. She looked up, stunned. "What is this?" He met her eyes. Options. Ava stared at him. This quiet man who barely spoke, who never asked for anything, now offering her a legal loophole like it was a fortune cookie. "You're not who you say you are you?" "I never said I was anything," he replied softly. But she saw it then. The weight in his gaze. The guilt pressed into every line on his face. And something inside her shifted. She didn't trust him. Not yet. But she wasn't ready to push him away either. That night, Ava stayed up Googling Landmark Ordinance 12.4. She didn't know if it'd work. She didn't know who James really was. But for the first time in days, she felt like the fight wasn't over. The napkin changed everything. The next morning, Ava walked into the city clerk's office with her apron still dusted in flour and a printout of James's tip crumpled in her hand. She didn't speak legalese, but she could read desperation between lines. Turns out he was right. The diner, Lyle's Diner, sat in a building that technically met the age and design criteria for landmark status. A long shot, sure, but a real one. And if the city declared it a protected site, developers couldn't touch it. At least not yet. Ava left the office with trembling hands and hope burning under her ribs. Back at the diner, she shared the news with Lyle. His eyebrows climbed halfway up his forehead. "You did what?" "I filed a review," she said, her eyes lit for the first time in weeks. "We could stall the deal. Maybe long enough to rally support. This place matters, Lyle. You said it yourself." He leaned against the counter, silent. Then he said, "That kid you used to be, she's still in there, huh?" Ava didn't answer. She just smiled. And so it began. Flyers on telephone poles. A petition taped to the front door. A fundraiser jar next to the register labeled "Save Our Diner," or at least the booths with decent cushions. Customers started coming back. Local reporters dropped by. Ava found herself being quoted in articles with headlines like, "Waitress leads charge to save historic diner." She laughed the first time she saw her name in print. James kept coming, quiet as always, but every now and then, he'd leave behind another napkin. Check section 14.2 for business delay clauses. Local press eats nostalgia. Find someone who remembers the place. People don't fight for buildings. They fight for memories. Tell your story. Ava kept everyone. Then one night, long after closing, she sat alone in her booth with a pen and a fresh napkin of her own. She wasn't sure why she did it, but she wrote a question. "Why are you helping me?" The next morning, the napkin was gone. And in its place, "Because I wish someone had helped me." Later that week, a framed black and white photo appeared on the diner's wall. Ava as a little girl, grinning, syrup on her cheeks, her mother beside her, smiling through exhaustion. Lyle had found it in the storage room. Customers stopped to look. Some cried. Others added their own photos to the wall. Ava stood in the middle of the diner one night, eyes glassy, as stories echoed around her. People remembering their first dates here, their grandfathers, their Sunday pancakes. And behind it all him, sitting quietly, watching it unfold like a man looking at something he'd once forgotten how to feel. She slid into the booth next to him. "You're not like the other suits," she said softly. James gave a small, sad laugh. "Only because I lost mine." She turned to him, studying his face. "Who are you, James?" He met her eyes. Someone who made a lot of mistakes. That silence returned, but it was different now. Not empty, shared. And for the first time since she met him, Ava didn't feel alone in her fight. The fundraiser picked up steam. Locals came with stories and spare change. Teenagers made TikToks about the old diner that's still fighting. Ava was interviewed on a local podcast. She laughed nervously, spoke from the heart, and people listened. But one night, when the noise quieted and the diner emptied, Ava stayed behind, alone in booth 5, holding a napkin that read, "What made you stop drawing?" It had no name, no signature, just the question. She stared at it for a long time. When James walked in just before closing, she didn't get up to pour coffee, didn't move. "You really want to know?" she asked, not looking at him. He nodded. She took a breath, then another. "I had a little brother," she began, her voice soft. "His name was Ethan. He was light. You know, that kind of person who makes every room brighter just by being in it." James listened, quiet, still. "I had my first gallery showing the night he..." She stopped. Her lips trembled. "He was driving to surprise me. My first art show. He was proud of me." She looked down at her hands. There was a truck. Black ice. I was at the gallery, smiling, sipping cheap wine while he was... Her voice cracked. "I haven't picked up a brush since." James closed his eyes like her pain had reached inside him. "I blame myself," she whispered. "Still do." Silence settled like snow. He finally spoke, voice low. "You carry that weight so well. No one would ever know." Ava laughed, bitter. "That's the point." She turned to him. "What about you?" You sit here, leave advice like fortune cookies, but I still don't know anything about you. He looked out the window, his hand clenched slightly around his coffee. I used to build things, he said. Companies, teams, empires even. He paused, but I lost myself somewhere along the way. Lost people too. Good people. Ava tilted her head. Were you a boss? A beat. Then, I was the boss. The air thickened. Something unspoken trembled between them. But before Ava could ask more, a sound buzzed from her phone. A notification. A headline. She opened it casually, then froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came. There on the screen. Disgraced billionaire James Halden resurfaces in local scandal. A photo. His face. Clean-shaven, tailored suit, and smug from a time long gone. She looked up slowly, eyes wide, blood draining from her face. James didn't move, didn't flinch. You. Halden Group. Her voice cracked. You're him. He tried to speak, but she stood up fast, breath sharp. You've been here this whole time. Helping. Watching. While your company tries to tear this place down. He stood too, hands raised. Ava. Listen, it's not what you think. No, she snapped, stepping back. You don't get to do this. Not to me. Not to this place. Her hands trembled now, fists clenched at her sides. You sat in my booth, drank my coffee, listened to my story, and never said a word. James looked devastated, but he didn't chase her. She walked to the back of the diner, head low, chest tight, and disappeared through the swinging door. The next morning, Ava didn't show up for the breakfast shift. Lal noticed first. That girl's never late, he muttered, glancing at the empty sketch napkin she usually left beside the register. The diner felt colder without her. The regulars noticed too. Marvin didn't crack a single joke. The coffee tasted bitterer, the morning quieter. And James, he was already there. Same booth, same seat, but no notebook, no coffee, just a sealed envelope in front of him. He sat with his hands folded, expression unreadable, until Lal walked over, not bothering to hide his suspicion. You want something? Lal asked. James looked up slowly. I came to return something that doesn't belong to me. He pushed the envelope forward. Lal hesitated, then picked it up, opened it, read, and froze. It wasn't just a letter. It was a property deed. Signed, notarized, ownership of the diner transferred in full to Ava Sanders. Later that morning, Ava stood outside the diner in her coat, not quite ready to go in. She didn't know if James would be there, and didn't know what she'd say if he was. But Lyle stepped outside with a slight smirk and handed her the envelope. She blinked. What is this? You tell me, he said, and walked away. She opened it. Read it once, twice, and her knees nearly buckled. Inside, James waited. She walked in slowly, still holding the deed in her trembling hands. I don't understand, she whispered. He stood, calm, tired, honest. For once, not hiding. I bought this place because it was part of a portfolio. I never cared, never visited. Just a number on a spreadsheet. He paused, eyes full of guilt. But then I came here, and I saw you, heard your stories, and I remembered what it felt like to be human. Ava's throat tightened. You lied to me. I did, he admitted. But I didn't come here to manipulate you. I came to disappear. I just didn't expect to feel again. She swallowed hard. Why give me the deed? Because it's the only thing I own that's ever mattered, and the only thing I don't deserve to keep. She stared at him, conflicted, wounded, but something had cracked open in her. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. You could have walked away, she said. Vanished. Let the whole thing burn. He nodded. I almost did. She looked down at the deed. So what happens now? He offered a tired smile. That's not up to me. Weeks passed. Summer settled in with golden light and longer days. The threat of demolition faded, replaced by something no one expected. Hope. The diner stayed open. But more than that, it bloomed. Locals donated. A retired carpenter rebuilt the booth backs. A former art teacher offered to repaint the walls, but Ava insisted on doing it herself. She picked the colors. She chose the brush. And for the first time in years, she painted. On a quiet Tuesday morning, a new addition appeared inside. A gallery wall, right across from booth 5. Black and white photos, napkin sketches, Ava's childhood drawings. But in the center, framed in soft walnut, was a new painting. A faceless man in a diner booth, hands wrapped around a steaming mug, morning light pouring through the blinds, and written along the edge in her own handwriting. Sometimes, the quietest people leave the loudest mark. James didn't return right away, not for weeks. But one morning, just before opening, Ava stepped inside and found a familiar figure sitting in booth 5. No coat, no notebook, no lies. Just James, looking at the wall. He stood when he saw her. "I didn't think you'd come back," she said. "I didn't think I'd be welcome." "You're not," she replied, then smiled. "But the coffee is." He smiled back. Soft, grateful, human. They sat across from each other in silence, but this time it was full. Not avoidance, comfort. Outside, the city went on. But inside, a woman who thought she was just a waitress now owned her story. And the man who once owned everything sat quietly, letting go of what never mattered and holding on to what finally did. Not fortune, not power, but a second chance.